Influencers is brought to you by
7 C's. Start your day the right way. Sawyer Studios, located in the Flowers Plaza, Carmichael Road West. Carib Construction. Real-Time Sound Studios. And Global Transformation Media, transforming you from the inside out. Welcome to Influencers on Guardian Talk Radio, 96.9 FM, and I am your host, Lady Shema. And on this radio show, we take you into the world of leaders within Bahamian society and the global community to give you insight on how they use their influence to bring about positive change. We provide this platform for influencers to inspire our listeners with their personal stories on how they maneuver and strategize to still be impactful and influential even in this new norm environment post-COVID-19. It is our hope that the stories and insight of the influencers we bring to you will inspire you to use the power of your influence to bring transformational change to your immediate environment, Bahamian society, and for some, even across international divides. And today we delve into the mind of a Bahamian woman and leadership connoisseur who has distinguished herself amongst a plethora of other outstanding female leaders as she has led her own political party for over 2 decades, championing the cause towards good governance for the Bahamian people. She says that her party will drastically ameliorate the lives of every Bahamian by removing the policies that have frustrated and impoverished the nation. She says the people have a choice, but God has a plan. Today we welcome influencer, servant leader of the Bahamas Constitution Party, Ali McIntosh, as we discuss the topic, Good Governance, a plea for a better Bahamas. All this and more when we return here on Influencers on Guardian Talk Radio, 96.9 FM. Need your picture taken? Well, if you want it to look its best, then go to the best. It's Sawyer Studios, capturing your special events, portraits, passport, job, and visa photos. Plus, there's more. Also offering professional printing services of business cards, letterheads, signs, and banners. Opened Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sundays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a legacy. 28 years and growing. Located in the Flowers Plaza, Carmichael Road. Call 361-7786.
Start your day the right way with 7 C's.
Start your day the right way. Trust in the timeless tradition of 7 C's cod liver oil. 7 C's cod liver oil is a rich, natural source of omega-3, giving you the essential nutrients needed to promote good health and help make sure you're looking and feeling your very best. Whether it's one a day, high strength, or traditional, with 7 C's cod liver oil, you start your day the right way.
Start your day the right way with 7 C's.
At Carib Construction and Project Management, we do 3 things. We give you exactly what you want at the best possible price while building at the best construction standards in the industry. So when making that big investment in building a home, apartment, or commercial complex, trust our over 20 years of professional experience in architectural drawing, design, and electrical. We even offer complete packages with property and construction included. See our impressive portfolio at caribconstruction.com or call us at 341-4466. Welcome back to Influencers, and I'm your host, Lady Shema. And with me today is influencer, servant leader of the Bahamas Constitution Party. A long time in waiting, but it's finally here. Ali McIntosh, as we discuss the topic, good governance, a plea for a better Bahamas. Welcome to Influencers.
It's good to be here, Shema. It's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much for being here. And of course, you know that this show is concerned with inviting listeners into the nuances of the lives of leaders and trailblazers who have and who continue to use their influence to bring positive transformation to the Bahamas and beyond. Thereby, we hope that listeners are also encouraged to use their influence to bring about positive change. And talking about the power of influence, you really, really stand out on the political landscape just about 2 decades in 1998 is now 2021, Bahamas Constitution Party. I often wonder who are the influencers of this great influencer by the name of Ali McIntosh, particularly women. Who would they be and why?
Well, Shema, the very first woman who would be the greatest influence on my life is my mother.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, my mother, Pastor Dr. Jane Hopeful White. Mm-hmm. She was my modern-day hero. Mm-hmm. I looked at her as helping God run the world when I was a child. She was that great in my mind.
Wow.
But I always wanted to be like her.
Okay.
I wanted to be a missionary and help change the world. I
Yes.
think if she could do it when I grow up, I can do it too.
Yes.
So she really was the number one hero in my mind
Yes.
when I was growing up as a child,
Okay.
into my teenage years, and even into my adulthood, and even now. My mother is one of the greatest source of
Oh, wow.
influence
Uh-huh.
for me. My mother, at the age of 69, 70, went back to school.
What?
Got her doctorate degree at the age of 72. But
Amazing.
she took a BGCSE, passed
Uh-huh.
it, and that just gave her the thirst, and she went back to school.
That is amazing. You said 69, 70?
69, at 72, she got her,
To earn her doctorate.
a doctorate degree.
That is absolutely
Yeah, they
amazing.
said she was the number one in the class, too.
Okay. And when it comes to female parliamentarians or persons involved in politics, who would they be for you?
When I was growing up in the 80s, Senator Talita Strawn was appointed as a straw vendor
Yes.
in the Senate. So Lyndon appointed her. I thought that was so amazing. She was an ordinary woman, and that ordinary woman made me think that I can be something too in politics.
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
So my greatest role, I thought, to be a PLP senator, that would possibly be where I want to be. I figured that's all I could aim for, based on the fact that women, it was slow in getting to some places, in politics.
Okay. So from aspiring to be a PLP senator potentially to now being the leader of your own party, the Bahamas Constitution Party. And since 1998, I was reading through. I am very, very, very enthralled by what it is that I see here. You have a mission to ensure that everyone's goals are achievable. The vision to lead the nation back to a dependence on God. The goal to put governance in the hands of the people. That got me. How in the world are you going to put governance back in the hands of the people?
Shema, when we talk about policy,
Yes.
Constitutional democracy, in which the Bahamas Constitution Party, having studied
Yes.
and looked at as a way to change the nation's status, is governance for the people, by the people. When we talk about constitutional democracy, local government on every sphere of this society has to happen in order for us to build communities. At this point, because we do not have local government in New Providence, we have a disadvantage in causing communities to be built individually. I mean, I live in Fire Trail Road area. That's
Okay.
a big community. If we put local government in that area, I'm just going to speak of one.
Okay.
Those people are going to feel a part and a stakeholder as to how their community is developed. A lot of times, government, the central government, goes ahead and just make plans for local communities without consideration of what persons in that community think and how they will do it. So that is part of how we will put governance in the hand of the people. The people have to feel that they are stakeholders, that they have some responsibility in how they deal with their own community, how they develop it. And that's how you put governance back in the hands of the people. But going to constitutional democracy will have that. It's an imperative, local government, in terms of the development of the people. And one of the partners that will come along with the Bahamas Constitution Party has an even greater idea as to how we build communities in the idea of local government, in terms of provincial government in those particular local areas.
Why the term, why the word constitution within the name of your party? Why did you see that as being important, as being paramount?
That was not something I came up with.
Because that really stood out to me as well.
I did not come up with that idea.
Okay.
In 1998, I was given that revelation to run 39 Christian men and women under the banner of the Bahamas Constitution Party. In the vision, I was sent to Sir Lyndon Pindling.
This is a divine experience you had.
Yes, in Washington, D.C. in 1998 at the American University.
Oh, wow.
The third instruction was to go to Sir Lyndon and exact from him the original intent of the preamble of the Constitution. Having gotten that vision,
Yes.
It began my search about why the Constitution was important.
Okay.
Because as you say, there are Constitution parties all across the world. People don't like them very much because when you talk about a Constitution, you're talking about good governance. You're talking about how the nation should be governed.
Yes.
It is the paramount document, the supreme law of how any nation should be governed. And so the Constitution in the name of the party, speaks about how we should govern ourselves.
Yes.
And we're just a party that represents what should be the supreme law as to how we should be governed.
How do you feel about the Bahamian Constitution? Do you feel that it lends itself towards the empowerment and the upliftment of the nation, of us as a people, as the electorate?
We inherited, of course, the Constitution back in the day when our forefathers fought for governance, for self-governance and self-determination. There was no constitution. We were just the colonies of the Bahama Islands.
Yes,
we were governed from Britain. We had a governor here sent straight from the Queen. We had persons who were part of a legislative council. We called them the UBP, but they were the oligarchs. They controlled the industry, the economics of the country. And those days, they just controlled it how they saw fit. We just kind of surprised them when we decided that we wanted to govern. And our forefathers went for that. And, of course, the PLP from 1953 actually went after getting a constitution for self-governance for these islands. And that's where we began with the Constitution. Like they say, Britain, the mother country, Britain, don't have a constitution, but we do. And those documents were made to govern these islands that must be subjected to the Commonwealth and continue to do so. But we believe that the Constitution that we inherited was sufficient at that day, based on what we wanted, self-determination. We wanted to be able to govern ourselves, even though the Queen was still to be advised, to be warned, to be consulted in regards to everything. But at this point, the Bahamas has come close to 47 years, almost.
Full circle?
48 years, almost 50 years.
Yes.
And it is time that we have a self-determining constitution. And so when I speak about constitutional democracy, we must go there. Right now, we are parliamentary monarchy based on where we stand in the status of nations. But we want to go to constitutional democracy, which we would consider a transition to a republic style of governance, of course, based on
and when you say this, you're talking about your
the Bahamas
party,
Constitution Party.
Right.
Let's look at how we can transition to constitutional democracy. We've studied that. That's been part of the longevity and the length and the tenure of the Bahamas Constitution, these 23 years, in terms of how do we change the nation. People think, Shema, 23 years is a short time when you're talking nation building. It's not a short time. It's not a long time, sorry.
It's not a long time, yeah.
It's a short time in looking at ways as to how
Relatively
you can change.
speaking, yes.
How you can change a nation.
That's correct.
And the Bahamas Constitution Party in all of these 23 years have been looking at those ideas, seeing how they will work, looking at what have actually worked in this environment and what does not work and why they does not work. When we see the power that goes to the Prime Minister and certain things that lends to non-accountability and transparency, you know we have to actually change it. That although in this environment of the Westminster system we have three arms of government, we still will have that in constitutional democracy, but the way they are accountable to each other will change how we will provide a better level of good governance. And so it is important. It's important to change the status if we are going to look at better governance.
Okay. Let me ask you this, and I want you to be very specific and very particular in answering this question. And that is, how do we go from the constitution that is to one that you describe as a self-determining constitution? What would be those major differences or the reforms that would be required in order for this to come to be?
Constitutional changes is going to be necessary. Widespread constitutional reforms is going to be necessary for that to happen. We go straight to the matter of political reform in terms of setting a fixed date for election. Whether we have a president or a prime minister, whether the Senate is also elected. That is very important. We hear people talk a lot about the Freedom of Information Act and an ombudsman office. These are items of constitutional democracy, not necessarily necessarily this Westminster system. And that is why a lot of those persons who have politicians who have promised the people, oh, we're going to get it done, they have never really gotten it done because they know within the system it is not tenable. And even if it is tenable, the Westminster system gives them the opportunity to go back to their comfort zone.
Okay.
And so some of those are the things that we have to do in order to change the Constitution. Take, for instance, a constitutional commission.
Okay.
We always appoint a Queen's Counsel, right, as the chair of that. A Queen's Counsel will never recommend that we remove Her Majesty as head of the Commonwealth. Not head of the Commonwealth, but head of the country, because of the fact that they are on Her Majesty's Privy Council.
Exactly.
So they will do so. In order for us to do that, we would need persons who are much more, who feel it's a more tenable idea in order to suggest that we go the direction of removing the Queen as the executive manager according to Article 71 of the Constitution. And that is an article that has to be changed, Article 71 of the Constitution, in order for us to go to constitutional democracy. So there are going to be widespread need within the country.
What it is that you're talking about, Servant Leader Ali McIntosh, is quite revolutionary. You're talking about removing the Queen as head of state as relates to Bahamian governance. Who is going to do this? How is this going to be done? Is this just idealistic? Or is this really going to happen? Because a lot of the change that really needs to happen in Bahamian society really calls for that to actually be in reality, for that to actually take place. We talk about it a lot. It's alluringly idealistic. We know that it is necessary, that it is critical, that it's crucial for the reformation that is needed in the Bahamas. But who will actually see this to fruition, see this to manifestation? The Bahamian electorate? Is the Bahamian electorate ready for this? It almost sounds near to that of a revolt. Is this really realistic?
The move of the country from constitutional monarchy to constitutional democracy is a realistic idea. It is not just idealistic that we can't do it. We see that certain of our Caribbean brothers and sisters, Jamaica, I think it's Trinidad, have recommended that they go to a republic-style governance or remove the Queen as the executive manager of their particular state.
Yes.
This is interesting. And why it is interesting is, although those islands was conducted and led by men for the time that they have had, they've never suggested it. If you notice, all of those islands that made such a suggestion, a woman was actually at the head of the country when they did so. Because she can see that it can happen. The Queen is a woman, right? It appears that only a woman can suggest to another woman. If you don't mind, I would like to do this myself.
Yes.
That's just a joke between us. But I'm simply saying that
And
because it is a realistic idea.
Yes.
And we can do it. I don't see it as something difficult to do. We've been studying it for the last 20 years. The Bahamas Constitution Party is prepared to adopt that idea because we believe as the Constitution Party there has to be changes.
Yes.
The Bahamas Constitution Party wants a new constitution that is actually tabled in the Parliament of the Bahamas.
Okay.
That is passed in the Parliament of the Bahamas. For anybody who have looked at the front of the Constitution, it was laid before the British Parliament. It is, I think, Act 1080, the Bahamas Independence Order Act of the British Parliament, not the Bahamian Parliament. So if we want to go to a next level, we have to actually get a new constitution and have it tabled in the Parliament of the Bahamas. And the Bahamas Constitution Party is committed to educating the Bahamian people in this regard, going to referendum and asking the Bahamian people what it is that they want. And if they said yes, we are going to go in that direction
forward.
quickly. Yes.
That's really powerful. I follow you on social media. I'm very intrigued by you. Your boldness, your insight, as well as your willingness to adjust and to progress. All of a sudden, I saw the servant leader doing all of these lives day after day after day, speaking to the issues. I said, wow. I said, she's up for it. And one of the things that you did recently, you stand with the people. Thursday, February the 4th, according to a local news source, the BNU the Bahamas Nurses Union, met with the Prime Minister, who reportedly told Amancio Williams, the BNU president, open quote, he granted permission to the Treasury to go ahead and carry out whatever was promised to us since July, end quote. That's a quote there from Amancio Williams, the president of the BNU. The PM also reportedly told the BNU president that they will be paid even if he is not paid at the end of the month. And this statement, of course, referring to overtime payment due to some nurses during this all-out war against COVID-19. And for some, this overtime payment was due for time worked since Hurricane Dorian, 2019. And it's now 2021. Okay, so we're living in unprecedented times when, even as a small island developing state, we're dealing with a health crisis as tumultuous as a pandemic. What's the BCP's policy for essential workers, like doctors and nurses, for example? And also, what kind of policy would you have in place to counter a crisis such as this one, the COVID-19 pandemic, especially now with the hindsight as an advantage after going through this whole tumultuous experience?
Regarding, of course, we stood with the nurses and the frontline workers. Our chairman, Mr. Dwayne Eiler, has worked personally in terms of making contact with both the nurses and the doctors, their unions, to see what it is that they can do, what they should have been done. Now, we do believe, of course, we can't have the frontline workers working and not having them being paid in a regular, because when you're working 15 extra hours a week, you should be paid. You know what that feels like, getting home.
Yes.
You know what it feels like. Because you can't do 15 hours a day. And you want to have that reflected at the end of the week or the end of the month.
You're
and
entitled
so
to.
I don't think that the country should be so slack in dealing with these kinds of issues with people who are working in that regard.
Yes.
What some might not know is the Bahamas Constitution Party had done quite a bit of research at the very beginning of this pandemic regarding what kind of medicine should be used in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic and how we should view it as a nation, not just what the world is saying to us, but as a nation. We are situated very far, hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles from some of the places by which some of these recommendations come. And we did not wish to proceed or operate on that level. We had recommended since March of last year, during the height of the pandemic, to the Prime Minister and the competent authority in regards to the use of drugs out of Cuba. Alpha, some of the drugs, I don't remember the name, but coming out of Cuba, that was able to help and provide the stay of COVID-19 from spreading quickly. That was one of those things. We've seen even Bahamas Air, our government, allowing Bahamas Air to go to Cuba, get their doctors to take them to St. Lucia, where the cases in St. Lucia was almost till nil. The fact is, those are things that we had recommended, and the reason we had recommended is because we were looking at things that would work more in our environment versus what the world is saying. The second thing is that we would have hoped that the government of the Bahamas, out of the Ministry of Health, would have recommended to the greatest extent how people should build their immune system, how people should use the natural remedies that we have in the country and use them to the building of the immune system, and also to just stay the COVID-19 out of the bodies of Bahamians. Of course, I think that the government didn't take that approach to the great degree. And then the third thing is the food that the government was providing for the Bahamian citizens did not promote that. That was another problem, that the BCP would not have gone in that direction. Yeah, the food that was provided were canned foods and dry foods, whereas the BCP recommended very early, and which will be one of our primary ideas about food security, is that people should actually start backyard farming.
That's good.
Yeah, we I know I did 2 shows. It was interesting and powerful.
Now. Yes.
People are doing plant stuff in your backyard,
and successfully too.
I'm telling you. So all of those ideas that works for local consumption, the government of the Bahamas should have been planting, even when we saw the pandemic coming.
Yes,
that we should have gone straight into a local farming to a greater extent in order to get the Bahamian people ready to be supplied by local foods.
Yeah, that's really good. You took quite a number of angles there in answering that question, and I really appreciate that. We're now at that marker pretty much where we're going to be taking a break really soon. But right before we go into taking a break, I want to ask you this, and that is, have you aligned yourself or your political party, the BCP, with the Bahamas Evolution Movement, the Bahamian Evolution Movement? I'm asking this question because I'm seeking clarity on your involvement with the Bahamas Evolution Concert Rally Motorcade on January the 11th, where on a live social media broadcast, you spoke about freedoms per the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, such as freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, freedom to speak, freedom of speech. And you've been cited with them on quite a number of occasions, supporting their cause as a movement. What is the relationship there between the Bahamian Evolution Movement and the BCP?
That is a very good question. And as you know, persons who would have followed the Bahamas Constitution Party and myself for many, many years, we have always been very active when it comes to activism, in that we have supported activism over the years. Regarding the Bahamian Evolution, when Mr. Bain started the Bahamian Evolution, he did approach the BCP about supporting the work that he was doing.
Okay.
He indicated that he was an activist and that he would be doing activism regarding the natural resources, and that we should support him. We made a decision to support him from the back, and we did. Of course, several of his programs downtown, otherwise we were with him. We would have spoken to what he was doing in support. On the 11th of January was Majority Rule Day. We determined that we would be part of the Majority Rule Day. Of course, that is a very powerful holiday.
Of course, yes.
In the country, in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And so that was part of the BCP agenda to support the Bahamian Evolution on that day. But things changed at the end of that day. By the end of that day, Mr. Lincoln Bain determined that he wanted to have independents run with him as part of his political pursuit, which really did show us a little curveball.
Okay.
Because that was not necessarily originally the intent.
Okay.
Where he was going. At that point, he did not indicate that he was supporting the Bahamas Constitution Party, that he was now supporting himself and 39 independent men and women to run with him. Of course, at that point, the Bahamas Constitution Party stepped away and continued the work that we were doing and is doing towards contesting the 2022 general election, or whenever it's called.
Okay.
So that is our position regarding Mr. Lincoln.
So if the curveball was not thrown, would you have possibly created an alliance with the movement?
It is an activist movement. There are political parties are always associated with activism throughout, and almost at any general election, there is a great level of activism that goes on. It really helps to gather the people. And when it gathers the people, the galvanizing helps now to help move the people in the direction of a political agenda. That would have been the intent. We stood with the We March, Mr.
Yes, that is so.
Enfield.
Yes.
Yeah, he invited myself and our deputy leader to support him in that work.
Okay.
Which was before the 2017 general election, and we did. I mean, of course.
So you're a nationalist.
I'm always involved in pushing these work forward. Sometimes, they do a curveball afterwards and they go and do something else. But we continue to move forward. That has never crippled the Bahamas Constitution Party. We continue to move towards the agenda of going on the ballot, and we have never missed going on the ballot. And we will continue in this regard despite the position of Bahamian Evolution.
Okay, thank you so very much. You were just now listening to the voice of the servant leader. And she is, of course, Ali McIntosh, influencer of the day here on Influencers on Guardian Talk Radio, 96.9 FM. I am your host, Lady Shema. We are on the topic, good governance, a plea for a better Bahamas. How do we get there? And we're going to have more after the break, right here after these words. Need your picture taken? Well, if you want it to look its best, then go to the best. It's Soya Studios, capturing your special events, portraits, passport, job, and visa photos. Plus, there's more. Also offering professional printing services of business cards, letterheads, signs, and banners. Opened Monday to Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sundays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a legacy. 28 years and growing. Located in the Flowers Plaza, Carmichael Road. Call 361-7786.
Start your day the right way with 7 C's.
Start your day the right way. Trust in the timeless tradition of 7 Seas cod liver oil. 7 Seas cod liver oil is a rich, natural source of omega-3, giving you the essential nutrients needed to promote good health and help make sure you're looking and feeling your very best. Whether it's one a day, high strength, or traditional, with 7 Seas cod liver oil, you start your day the right way.
Start your day the right way with 7 C's.
Welcome back to Influencers. I'm your host, Lady Shema, and with me today is influencer servant leader Ali McIntosh, of course, of the Bahamas Constitution Party. She is head of that political organization party, and we are discussing the topic, good governance, a plea for a better Bahamas. And of course, she has always been at the fore when it comes to advocating for good governance. I've got to ask you this at the top of this second part of the show, and that is, according to Ali McIntosh, what is good governance?
Very big, very complex question to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
It surely is the opposite of bad governance.
Yeah, most definitely.
Corruption,
Yes, ma'am.
nepotism,
Mm-hmm.
mismanagement.
Mm-hmm.
It's surely opposite of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
What we see in the Bahamian society or Bahamian national leadership
Mm-hmm.
is what I would consider and what we would consider to be not good governance.
Mm-hmm.
The reason is it is important for good governance is that the people be stakeholders.
Yes, ma'am.
They must feel that.
Mm-hmm.
They must feel that they are part of what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
When people feel disenfranchised, when they're discouraged, despondent, as we see in the nation today, it is clear that good governance is not happening.
Mm-hmm.
So good governance really brings to the fore integrity within leadership,
Okay.
accountability
Mm-hmm.
to all the stakeholders,
Mm-hmm.
transparency in how we operate. And it is important when we look to find good governance,
Mm-hmm.
we must, as I said before, find out what the people need
Mm-hmm.
and how do we meet that
Mm-hmm.
as best we can with the resources that we have.
Mm-hmm. So you're actually going to ask the electorate, what is it that you need? What is it that you desire? You're going to be that kind of a government.
I think a lot of times we are going to be
Mm-hmm.
that. Let me tell you, one of the policies that have hold there since day one of the
Mm-hmm.
BCP
Yes, ma'am.
is to make the constituency office
Mm-hmm.
a government office.
Mm-hmm.
So in every constituency, it is, and we call it a Hope Center.
Mm-hmm.
It is a government office where the people who work there
Yes,
are
ma'am.
paid for by the government.
Mm-hmm.
So the member of parliament only comes, he is transitional really. He or
Okay.
she is transitional. They come in, they leave. The reason for that is so that people can actually come to the office and say, this is what I'd like to suggest to the government.
Okay.
So you will have surveys that they can come in, they can say, they can present what it is they want to see happen, so that the member of parliament or the government in general could just go ahead and look at what the people are saying, what they want to see happen. The fact that when we have a PLP constituency office or an F&M constituency office, people are intimidated by going into and presenting their views. So we want to make sure that that office is a government office, paid for, seeing that the government is paying for it, then the government should have control of that office so that the people can have their say in it.
Let's talk a little bit about politics right now. I really need to ask you this because almost every morning when I wake up, servant leader, I am seeing some new, acronyms. I'm like, okay, which party is this? Who is this leader? Is it a pastor? Is it an activist? A social worker? Who is this time? And I'm not being sarcastic here. I'm really being, sincere, because I wonder whether or not it's ever been thought that, hey,
if we go this way and we go this way and then they go that way, what about how the electorate, when it comes to 2022 elections, how this is going to be split up now? Would it really meet the overall goal, that these third parties in general have, okay, which is to ascend to governance to bring about this transformation that the majority of them say that we need? Or would they cause, by default, this governance landing right back into the lap where it resided since the inception of this country? Because you're going to have this small percentage over here, you're going to have this small percentage over here, and then you're going to have this little pocket over here. And then, of course, you're going to have the grassroots base that will, for the most part, as history has shown, that's going to remain with the two bigger parties.
Big question. But we're up for it in that when I look at all that's happening in regards to all of these parties, I know somebody suggested to me that in some countries, if you have there's only a certain amount of political thought in any event, right?
Mm-hmm. That's
generally.
Right.
You have the liberals, the conservatives, or the libertarians, the constitutionalists. Basically, it should be that in this country, that if you have a certain belief, you should be able to be a part of a country, of a party. Mm-hmm. You're either a liberal or conservative. Mm-hmm. You're a constitutionalist. You're a libertarian, or any number of things. Nonetheless, what we have here in the Bahamas, what's going on now, I would call it political mischief.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And when I say that, I'm not saying that some of these third parties aren't coming forward because they have a genuine reason to bring forth their political agenda. I think a lot of it is being masterminded by some of the politicians, so that by bringing out so many third parties, they are going to confuse and disillusion the electorate.
Oh, so you think it's with intent?
This is with intent. A lot of this is with intent. Mm-hmm. I was just hearing some stories out of Grand Bahama today. Mm-hmm. One constituency alone has 9 persons intending to contest. This is political
one constituency.
Mischief. Because a lot of the third parties are really, and we look at it and we see, they are doing this just to make sure that the PLP or the FNM gets back in power. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if we are committed to regime change, and the Bahamas Constitution Party is committed to regime change, and when I say that, I mean we need to remove the leadership of the nation now. Mm-hmm. The PLP and the FNM, which is the government and the opposition, we need to remove them and bring forward new parties to the fore. Mm-hmm. So the point that we don't just have 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, go right up. Mm-hmm. How many parties? They know it is untenable. They know it cannot happen. Okay. They are not committed to governance. They are committed to getting the PLP or the FNM back in power. That's what's happening.
Wow.
It's only political mischief. And we must see that as that. The Bahamas Constitution Party has tenure. 23 years of working, of planning, of doing the business, waiting for the time when the people will get their say. Mm-hmm. Now, for the last 20-something years, the people have not gotten their say. It has gone from the PLP to the FNM, back to the PLP and the FNM. After 3 years of tired of the PLP, you vote the FNM in. The FNM, you're tired of them after 4 years, you vote the PLP back. And the same leaders are there, and the same conundrums are being faced by the people based on these leadership. They do not want regime change. The Bahamas Constitution Party is committed to regime change and bringing forth at least 3 or 4 other parties to come to the front, to be able to cause a democracy to happen. But all of these little parties that coming up every other day is really just political mischief.
But I mean, you must believe that some of them,
I'm sure,
they would have to be sincere. Some of them, at least.
I am thinking that
even though rather recently formed,
some of the people involved in some of the parties are very sincere.
But not necessarily at the helm.
Not necessarily at the helm. The leadership of these parties, I have talked, Shema, and the BCP has reached out to every political party.
Every political party?
Every single political leader.
You're certain?
Everyone. Our chairman has been dealing with 8 or 9. I have spoken to almost every single well, of course, not the PLP and FNM because we're not.
No, I understand. You're trying to. Yes, go ahead.
We have spoken with every single political leader.
Okay.
And based on the level And sometimes I hesitate to say some things because I don't like to make people feel this way. But there's such level of deceit and disingenuity that's out there that you will realize that they're not committed really to governance. They are really just doing a bidding of some political leader attempting just to disenfranchise and confuse the electorate so that they would go back to the PLP or the FNM.
So they have the intent to divvy
yes
the electorate when it comes to the numbers for the elections for
yes,
2022.
that's what's happening. But there's a lot of good talent out there, mind you. People interested in putting
Very
themselves
much so.
forward.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And so if all of this was not happening and there was like 4 or 5 parties, you would see better amount of talents coming forward to produce an alternative for the governance. But because they're doing this, they're now making people believe there can't possibly be an alternative to PLP and the FNM.
Okay. What would you say to someone who says to you, servant leader, you're so sincere, you're such an intellect, I really believe that you did have a genuine divine experience encounter with God back in 1998, but you probably did what you were supposed to do. You probably, you're just a visionaire to inspire persons, to motivate persons, to be a spokeswoman, and maybe that was just your call. Maybe that was it. You probably just need to, hang up your hat and, just enjoy the rest of your life and just go off into the sunset. That you're wasting your time. 23 years. And still, what do you really expect to do in the 2022 elections? What would be your response to that person?
10 years is a very important matter. In every other field, 10 years is important.
Okay.
If you were a professor for 23 years, they will give you
that says a lot.
Meritorious award.
That's correct.
For having given the amount of time of teaching. In almost any field, mostly academia, and in going towards something that is important and life-changing as governance.
Yes, ma'am.
That it requires time and tenure and experience. When you have experience, there are certain things that comes with time, experience, wisdom, discretion.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Those are some of the things that have been built in the last 23 years. I have a book that's coming out. It was written based on these experiences called How to Reconstruct a Nation.
Oh.
Not coming out, sorry. It's on the market.
Okay.
You can go online, Amazon, and order the book.
Okay.
But it's called How to Reconstruct a Nation, Righteous Principles for National Leadership and Good Governance. It's taken close to 20 years to write the book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because as we look at what happens and what are the dynamics of Bahamian politics,
yes, ma'am,
we realize it's not easy. And what has been played, or the games that have been played on the Bahamian population and the Bahamian electorate, it requires that someone, having stood this long to make sure that the Bahamian people get their way. It's the only reason I've stood, I've stood because, we were waiting for some children to grow up. Be old enough to do it. We're waiting for some women to have courage to come forward.
That's
we were also waiting for some young men to get their degree, get themselves together. So I didn't stand for 23 years for no reason. Besides, the FNM was 21 years before they won.
Good point. Very good
point. The PLP worked very long before they actually won the government.
The governance, yes.
So 23 years is not a long time. The fact that for me, I would have hung up my hat a long time ago. But the fact that the divine mandate came at the beginning, and every time I says, am I done yet? You know that story? Are we there yet? Not yet, because we have not achieved.
Yes.
We have to achieve what it is we intended to achieve. And I am getting a little older, and I am prepared to sit down soon enough. But we have to get this done, because the political giant that this generation is fighting is not their giant.
Okay.
It is the giant of our generation, and we must defeat them before we give the next generation of the Bahamas this country, a new Bahamas that they can work with. We cannot pass this on to our children and our grandchildren. So that's the only reason I've stood this long.
Okay. So, servant leader, I hear you, and you've spoken very well to the question. However, there's a part of the question that still stands, that's still yet to be answered. and that is, how is this going to be countered? Because these parties do exist. They will split the vote. And for the most part, if we go according to history and if we go according to how the numbers are now, it's giving us a little bit of foresight into what potentially, more than likely, will happen come 2022. So what's going to happen to break this? Something needs to happen before that time, and it needs to be realistic, and it needs to be come to fruition, and it needs to be manifested in order for this to take place now, because we just can't have this wishful thinking that's just going on, and we hope that they're just going to come on board. And yes, there are 1,000 parties out there, and there's the regime that has withstood the test of time from 1967 to 2022. And how is this now going to be dealt with?
I believe the people.
An alliance?
I believe the people, the electorate.
Okay. I know you heard me when I said an alliance. Go ahead.
Yes, I did.
Yes, ma'am. Continue.
The Bahamian people has to be the ones who determine what happens. Is that people are going to come to your door and you got to find out from them. No, the Bahamian people have to first decide what they want. Because if you've done what you've always done, you will get what you've always gotten. But if you want change, you're going to have to do something else. And what is that something else? I am sure deep down in the hearts of every single electorate, a voter, they know what they want. They might not be courageous enough to say what they want. I was told earlier today that there are some people in Grand Bahama. Just let's use Grand Bahama again.
Go ahead, no problem.
They have determined, I know what we don't want. I don't want this. And people are going to come to their door and they're going to have to decide, I don't want this. They're going to have to ask them some questions. Mm-hmm. We do a litmus test when it comes to the candidates, right? Mm-hmm. And we ask them. These are just random questions. Mm-hmm. But it's and we've seen over the last two general elections when the BCP have endorsed candidates, it was by this litmus testing.
Okay.
Because the higher you get of this litmus test, it becomes the more idealistic a person may be, or more experience, or have more discretion or wisdom regarding what it is they do.
That's right.
So the Bahamian people has to decide what they want. And when they have decided what they want, when that person comes to the door, they need to find out from them what it is that you're going to do. If I had that test, I might have been able to ask a few questions. But they know what they want. Sometimes you want something to eat and you can't. It's not there. Oh, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. When you see it,
you know that's it.
This is what I want. And I think that the Bahamian people are going to come to that. They have to come to that point. And they're going to have to say, I don't want you. They're going to have to look at backgrounds. I think the media has a bigger responsibility. And I must say that now. The media have a bigger responsibility to look at the candidates, look at the leaders, and say this person should not be running. There's a man out there right now running who's been to jail for sexual assault. And he's running. He's the leader of a party. The media has to deal with that.
And the media should call him out.
The media should call him out. People are running who can't say, and I've seen it happening already, but the media have to do a bigger job in calling out. If the media begin their job in terms of these parties, a lot of it will be eliminated. People can't just get up today and say, I want to lead a party. You know you're not going to be able. You're not ready.
Okay.
You can't stay on a stage because you come to a rally and there's 300 people on the park. Oh, I've decided I'm going to run for government. I mean, that doesn't make any sense because you actually have to prepare for these things.
Yes, of course. Yes, go ahead.
And so I'm just saying this because I feel I'm getting a little bit passionate in this regard. But I do believe that people have to prepare.
You believe that the electorate is at that point now where I know what it is that I don't want, and now I've finally come to the place where I know what it is that I do want. Are they there yet?
Yeah, they're there. When we have social media and
They're there for 2022.
They are there for 2021.
I'm talking about as it relates to elections, going into the box, and for the first time, not putting a tick to the FNM, not putting a tick to the PLP, but putting a tick to the alternative.
Yes.
They're there.
I believe they're there. I believe, as I said, in terms of the political mischief, the leaders know that they are there. That's why they're creating the confusion. Yes. So we have to tell the electorate,
Okay.
listen here, and the media have to be a big part of this. I'm going back to that because I'm a member of the media.
Yes.
We have to be able to say to the Bahamian people, this is what you should look at. When there's a trial, the judge gives the jury instructions. He say, if you've seen this, then you would vote them guilty. If you've
Okay.
seen that, then you would vote them innocent. But based on this evidence that has been presented to you, that would determine what you do in terms of putting
Okay.
this man or woman guilty. I think the media has to do that
Okay.
to the Bahamian people. We must help the electorate
All right,
come
so
to the
fourth
next
estate
level. Yeah,
must
the fourth
arise. We have about 3.5 more minutes on the clock. I just want to talk policy. Just for a minute. I just want to hear your thoughts on this, and I'm going to invite you back, as a matter of fact, in the coming weeks to talk specifically about policy as we move way now towards the 2022 elections. Let's talk a little bit about BCP. Let's talk a little bit about the natural resources. Let's talk a little bit about drilling. On February the 8th, 2021, a local news source reported that the BCP announced that it had abandoned its exploratory drilling after its well came up largely dry. And as a result of this announcement, the company took a 70% plummet. Of course, BCP has been working towards exploratory oil drilling across successive governments, the PLP and the FNM, starting with the OK that it received from the Christie administration back in 2007, according to that party's chairman, per a statement he made on this same show. And the BCP reached a depth of 3,200 meters without incident. And since BCP's Perseverance number one
BPC.
well, Bahamas Petroleum Company, that is the BPC, yes.
Yes, okay.
Perseverance number one well, thank you very much, has now been permanently plugged and abandoned. What is your party's policy as it relates to oil drilling? You know, because we see the governments and we see them making these hard decisions, but when we're in the seat and the country is strapped and we need money now, and there's this opportunity and we could get this check and we can put this into the treasury, that's a different place. But what's your policy on that?
Well, the Bahamas Constitution Party have oil drilling as its last resort.
As a last resort.
As a last resort. We will not drill for oil immediately. And if there is any drilling, it will not be drilled from the sea.
Okay.
And we would be more interested in natural gas than just the oil. Now, this is the Bahamas, not the Bahamas Constitution Party. The Bahamas has more than 26 natural resources. Other natural resources. Andros is filled of
yes.
natural resources. There's something called alkaline mud
Yes.
that can
was
make
reading up on
many different products. And there is millions
Andros
of
is rich.
metric tons rich in natural resources. That's why we figure we will start with the other natural resources.
Okay.
And we will be able to facilitate income and generate income and industries for the country. If people go on our website, bcpparty.org, and go to our page with platform issues, it'll go to mandate 2022. It's only snippets we have, but there is a lot of information there. By the end of the month, we will put the entire blueprint for governance on that website. But if they go to it now, bcpparty.org, they will see that. Go to platform issues, go to mandate 2022, and they will see snippets. But there are so many other natural resources. And you know what I believe, and we do believe this, that the oil that might be underneath the Bahamas is why we have so much natural resources. So we don't want to tamper with that. We don't want to spoil our natural,
ecosystem.
pristine environment and the ecosystem on the count of looking for oil. We do not want to promote just greed and covetousness by saying, let's see how much billions of tons of oil. Let's go with those natural resources that are on the surface that we can work with. Our first objective is to feed ourselves. Producing, and the Bahamas can grow almost anything. Almost anything. Part of our plan is to make sure that anything, almost anything, is planted on every island, that it is watered, it is able to feed us and export. That's our first and primary agenda. The amount of jobs and the amount of businesses will come out of food security in this country under a Bahamas Constitution Party government will change how we look. We want full employment. And a lot of that full employment will come through feeding ourselves. And as I said, that natural resources, there are a lot of industries that will come out of those natural resources. The Bahamas Constitution Party government will push, subsidize, whatever it takes to get other persons, persons in the community to start those businesses to make sure that we come to full employment. We don't want to project just pie in the sky ideas. We are talking about things that actually can work. So when you go to our platform, when you hear what it is we're saying, you will find out that I didn't thought that could be done. But we can do it. We can provide food security and the kind of employment that we need in the country. It can happen.
Okay, so innovation and progressive thoughts here by influencer, servant leader, Ali McIntosh, head and leader of the BCP, the Bahamas Constitution Party. She was here with us today. And I'm telling you, I'm very inspired by you. And keep up the wonderful work that you are doing. So we're going to see what the end is going to be.
That sounds like a preach word.
That's going to be all here on Influencers. Of course, I am your host, Lady Shema, and with Ali McIntosh, servant leader of the BCP. And that's going to be all here today on Influencers. Until next time, blessings.
Influencers was brought to you by
7 C's. Start your day the right way. Sawyer Studios, located in the Flowers Plaza, Carmichael Road West. Carib Construction. Real-Time Sound Studios. And Global Transformation Media, transforming you from the inside out.